The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on Copper Ridge's main street, turning the dust into a fine powder that clung to everything like a second skin. Rose Harper knelt beside the wooden washtub outside her small cabin. Her sleeves rolled up past her elbows as she scrubbed another family's dirty laundry. The calluses on her hands had long since stopped hurting. They were just part of who she was now. "Rose!" Mrs. Stone's shrill voice cut through the afternoon heat. "These linens better be spotless, you hear. The Reverend and his wife are coming for dinner tonight." Rose didn't look up from the washboard. "They'll be ready, Mrs. Stone. See that they are, and use the good soap, not that lye mess you usually—" The thunder of hooves interrupted Margaret Stone's lecture. Rose finally raised her head, shielding her green eyes against the sun's glare. A lone rider approached from the east, his black horse kicking up a cloud of dust that seemed to announce trouble before he'd even dismounted. The stranger was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed entirely in black save for the pearl handles of his revolvers. His hat cast a shadow over his face, but Rose could feel his gaze scanning the street with the practiced eye of a predator. When he finally dismounted outside the saloon, his movements were fluid, confident, dangerous. "Well, I never," Mrs. Stone muttered, pressing her hand to her ample chest. "What manner of man rides into a Christian town looking like the devil himself?" Rose watched as the stranger tied his horse to the hitching post. Something about him made her pulse quicken. Not with fear, exactly, but with a recognition she couldn't name. He moved like a man who'd never met a situation he couldn't handle. And when he turned toward the growing crowd of curious townspeople, Rose caught sight of his face. Handsome in a hard way, with eyes the color of winter sky, and a mouth that suggested he knew secrets others didn't. A crescent-shaped scar curved along the left side of his neck, pale against his sun-darkened skin. "Ladies and gentlemen," the stranger called out, his voice carrying easily across the street despite its conversational tone, "I'm looking for my wife." The words hit Copper Ridge like a physical blow. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the flies seemed to pause their buzzing. "Your wife?" Mayor Hutchins stepped forward, mopping his brow with a handkerchief. "Son, I know every married woman in this town, and I don't recall—" Rose Harper. The name fell into the silence like a stone into still water. Rose felt the blood drain from her face as every eye in town turned toward her. She was still kneeling beside the washtub, soap suds dripping from her frozen hands. "That's impossible!" Mrs. Stone sputtered. "Rose isn't married. She's never been married. She's just the sheriff's bastard daughter," the stranger finished calmly. "I know exactly who she is, Mom. And I know she's my wife." Rose finally found her voice. "I don't know you." The words came out as barely a whisper, but in the deadly quiet of the street, they carried. The stranger smiled then, a slow, devastating expression that transformed his entire face. He began walking toward her with measured steps, his spurs chiming softly against the hard-packed earth. "Cole Watson," he said, tipping his hat slightly. "And you do know me, darling. You just haven't seen me in a while." He was close enough now that Rose could smell leather and gunpowder and something else. Something that reminded her of wild places and forbidden things. She scrambled to her feet, her wet apron clinging to her legs. "I've never seen you before in my life," she managed, her voice stronger now. Cole's smile widened. "Phoenix, spring of '82. You were wearing that same ring." His gaze dropped to the simple silver band on her right hand, her mother's ring, the only thing of value she owned. Rose's heart hammered against her ribs. There had to be 50 people watching this exchange, hanging on every word. She could feel their collective breath being held, waiting to see how this impossible scene would unfold. "You're lying," she said, but even as the words left her mouth, she wondered why he would lie about something so easily disproven. "Am I?" Cole stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Tell me, Rose, do you really want to call your husband a liar in front of all these good people?" The word husband hit her like a slap. She opened her mouth to protest, to scream that this was all some kind of elaborate joke or confidence game, but something in his expression stopped her. There was a challenge there, yes, but also something that looked almost like, "Hope, I don't understand," she whispered. Cole's hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away if she chose. When she didn't move, his fingers brushed against her cheek with surprising gentleness. "I know this is a shock, darling. I should have written, should have sent word I was coming, but I wanted to surprise you." Behind them, Rose heard the murmur of voices beginning to pick up. Mrs. Stone was whispering furiously to the preacher's wife. Mayor Hutchins was trying to restore some kind of order to the gathering crowd. "This is impossible," Rose said, but her voice lacked conviction now. The alternative, that this dangerous, handsome stranger was lying for reasons she couldn't fathom, seemed just as impossible. "Nothing's impossible when two people love each other," Cole replied, and his voice was so tender, so convincing, that for a moment Rose almost believed it herself. "But I don't remember." "The fever," Cole interrupted smoothly. "Doc said you might not remember everything from that time. You were so sick, Rose. I thought I might lose you." Dr. Hayes pushed through the crowd at that moment, his medical bag clutched in his pudgy hands. "Did someone mention fever? Rose, are you feeling unwell?" "No, Doc," Cole answered before Rose could speak. "I was just telling her about the fever she had last spring, in Phoenix. You remember, I sent word about her condition." Rose watched in amazement as Doc Hayes's face scrunched in concentration. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. "Ah, yes. Terrible thing. Fever can be. Sometimes affects the memory, especially if it runs high enough. I did receive correspondence about a young woman's condition now that you mention it." It was masterfully done, Rose realized with growing amazement. Cole had given the doctor just enough information to let him fill in the blanks himself, to remember what he thought he should remember. "Well, I'll be damned," Mayor Hutchins said, then quickly looked around at the church ladies. "Pardon the language. It's just, Rose, you never said you were married." Rose looked around at the sea of faces, faces that had shown her nothing but pity, contempt, or indifference for 22 years. But now she saw something different. Respect. Curiosity, yes, and suspicion, but underneath it all, a grudging respect that she'd never experienced before, because married women were different from bastard daughters. Married women had value, married women had protection and status and a place in the world that no one could question. "I didn't think it mattered," she heard herself say, and was amazed at how steady her voice sounded. Cole's smile was brilliant. "Of course it matters, darling. You're my wife." He turned to address the crowd, one arm sliding possessively around Rose's waist. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance, folks. I've been working a claim up in Colorado Territory, trying to put together enough money to send for Rose properly. When I finally had enough for train fare, I couldn't wait another day." "A mining claim?" Mayor Hutchins perked up considerably. Mining claims meant money, and money meant respectability. "Silver," Cole confirmed. "Been working it for the better part of 2 years now. Finally struck a decent vein this past spring." Rose felt like she was watching a play unfold around her, with herself cast in a role she'd never auditioned for. Cole's arm around her waist was warm and solid, and she could feel the strength in him, the coiled power of a man who was accustomed to taking what he wanted. The crowd began to disperse reluctantly, people drifting away in pairs and small groups, their voices rising in excited speculation as soon as they thought they were out of earshot. Within minutes, Rose and Cole were alone beside her washtub, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the dusty ground. "Why?" Rose asked, as soon as the last curious onlooker had disappeared. Cole's demeanor changed instantly, the tender husband facade dropping away to reveal something harder underneath. "Because I need you." "For what?" Your father hid something before he died, something valuable. I need to find it. Rose felt a chill that had nothing to do with the approaching evening. My father was the sheriff. He kept the peace and enforced the law. And what else? Cole's eyes never left her face. I don't know what you mean. Cole nodded toward her cabin. We should continue this conversation inside. Rose hesitated. Everything about this man screamed danger, but she'd spent her entire life being safe. And where had it gotten her? 22 years old, unmarried, friendless, washing other people's dirty laundry. All right, she said, but leave your guns outside. Cole's eyebrows rose, then he chuckled, a genuinely amused sound. Fair enough. He unbuckled his gun belt and hung it over the porch railing. Though I should warn you, I'm plenty dangerous even without these. So am I, Rose replied, surprised to discover she meant it. Inside her small cabin, Cole's presence seemed to fill the space entirely. He moved through the room like a predator scenting territory, his gaze cataloguing every detail of her sparse furnishings. Your father wasn't just the sheriff of Copper Ridge, Rose, Cole said without preamble. He was also a very effective fence. A what? He helped criminals sell stolen goods. For a percentage, of course. 3 months before he died, your father helped me and my partners sell some items we'd acquired. The total value was around $30,000. Your father's cut should have been $6,000. Rose's head was spinning. $6,000 was more money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. If he had that much money, why didn't I inherit it? Because he hid it. Probably because he was getting nervous about his arrangement with us. Men in his position don't usually retire. They disappear. But he didn't disappear. He died. Heart attack, according to the doctor. Very convenient timing. Cole's smile was sharp. I think someone wanted to make sure he didn't run off with a lot of stolen money. Rose felt cold despite the warm evening air. You think someone killed him? I think someone wanted to make sure they could find where he'd hidden it. But they couldn't, any more than anyone else could. Rose stood abruptly, pacing to the fireplace and back. Why me? Why involve me at all? Cole's expression softened slightly. Because I need a reason to be here, to ask questions. And because when I saw you out there today, saw how they all treat you, I thought maybe we could help each other. Help each other how? You get to be a respectable married woman instead of the town pariah. I get the cover I need to search for the money. When I find it, we split it and go our separate ways. It was tempting, more tempting than Rose wanted to admit. For a few hours today, she'd experienced something she'd never known, respect. And if you don't find the money, then you're a widow with a tragic story. Trust me, that's still better than being the sheriff's bastard daughter. Rose looked around her small cabin, taking in the patched curtains and narrow bed that had been her whole world. What did she have to lose? I have conditions, she said finally. Name them. First, no one gets hurt. Second, we need rules about how we act together. You can't just touch me whenever you want, and we don't share a bed. Cole's smile was amused but not unkind. I can sleep on the floor. As for touching you, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. I'll only touch you when our audience expects it. The brief contact sent an unexpected jolt through Rose's system. Third, when this is over, you leave and never come back. Understood. And fourth, I want half of whatever you find. Fair enough. Cole extended his hand. Partners. Rose looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Once she shook it, there would be no going back. She grasped Cole's hand firmly. Partners. Cole's smile was brilliant and dangerous. Welcome to the game, Mrs. Watson. The sound of her new name sent a thrill through Rose that she tried desperately to ignore. Outside, the sun had set completely, and Copper Ridge was settling into its nightly rhythm. Somewhere in the darkness, her father's secrets waited to be discovered. For the first time in her life, she was no longer alone. She was no longer nobody. She was Mrs. Cole Watson. And that changed everything. Rose woke before dawn to find Cole already awake, sitting by the window and watching the street with alert eyes. In the grey morning light, he looked dangerous and beautiful and utterly foreign in her small world. "Sleep well?" he asked without turning around. "Well enough." Rose dressed quickly in her best dress, dark blue cotton she'd carefully altered. If she was going to be Mrs. Cole Watson, she wanted to look the part. A sharp knock interrupted them. Rose opened the door to find Mrs. Stone, Padre Rivera, Dr. Hayes, and Mayor Hutchins clustered on her porch, all looking far too serious for a social call. "Mrs. Watson," Mrs. Stone said with barely concealed hostility, "we need to discuss some irregularities about your marriage." Rose's heart began to race, but she stepped aside to let them enter. Cole rose from his chair, moving with that fluid grace that reminded everyone he was dangerous. "Irregularities." Cole's voice was deceptively mild. "We have no record of your marriage," Dr. Hayes said kindly. "We sent a telegram to Phoenix. There's no record of any marriage between Rose Harper and Cole Watson." The silence stretched taut. Rose felt her newfound respectability crumbling. Then Cole laughed, warm and genuinely amused. "Well, of course there's no record in Phoenix. The ceremony wasn't performed there." Mrs. Stone's eyes narrowed. "You just said—" "I said Rose was ill with fever in Phoenix. The marriage took place in Tucson 2 days after she recovered. Judge Morrison officiated." Cole's smile was easy, confident. "Nice man, though he passed away since then." Rose watched in amazement as Cole wove this new lie seamlessly into their story. "Even so," Mrs. Stone pressed, "it's highly irregular for a woman to keep such a significant detail secret, particularly when she's been accepting charity work." "Charity work?" Cole's voice developed a dangerous edge. "Rose does laundry and mending for families in town," Mayor Hutchins explained quickly. "I see." Cole's eyes swept the modest cabin. "And how much does my wife earn from this honest work?" $2 a week, Rose said quietly. "Sometimes 3. Cole's expression went very still. $2 a week. To wash and mend clothes for how many families? 6, Rose whispered. "And what would you pay a hired girl, Mrs. Stone?" Cole's voice was deadly quiet. $8 a week, Dr. Hayes said. "Maybe 10. Cole turned back to face the room, something dangerous flickering in his winter blue eyes. "So my wife has been working for less than half of what you'd pay a servant, living in a shack, barely fit for animals, while you, good Christian folk, pat yourselves on the back for giving the poor bastard daughter charity work. Now see here." Mayor Hutchins started. "No, you see here." Cole's voice cut like a blade. "My wife is a married woman. She's been a married woman for over a year, and you people have been treating her like something you scraped off your boots." Rose felt tears pricking her eyes. No one had ever defended her before. No one had ever stood up for her worth. Padre Rivera stepped forward peacefully. "Mr. Watson, we understand your anger, but surely you can see how this appears from our perspective. You mean to discover she's not the worthless bastard you all thought she was?" Cole's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Tell me, Padre, how does it feel to realize you've all been treating a respectable married woman like a pariah?" The cabin fell silent, except for Mrs. Stone's indignant breathing. Rose looked around at these people who had shaped her world with their judgments, seeing them clearly for the first time. They looked uncomfortable, defensive, ashamed. "Perhaps we should focus on moving forward," Dr. Hayes said carefully. "Mrs. Watson, we owe you an apology." "I want respect for my wife," Cole said simply. "The same respect you'd show any other married woman in this town." After the delegation left with much less ceremony than they'd arrived with, Rose sank into her chair, legs unsteady. "That was," she started. "Necessary," Cole finished. They needed to understand that you're under my protection now. Rose looked up at this dangerous stranger who had just fought for her honor more fiercely than anyone ever had. Thank you. You don't need to thank me for treating you with basic human decency, Rose. Another knock echoed through the cabin, gentler this time. Mrs. Watson, a young voice called. It's Sarah Henderson. Mama sent me to ask about the dress. Rose opened the door to find Sarah Henderson, the banker's 16-year-old daughter, fidgeting nervously. The girl's eyes widened when she saw Cole. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had company. Sarah's cheeks turned pink. This is my husband, Cole, Rose said, marveling at how easily the words came now. Your mother mentioned a wedding dress? Cole asked politely. Yes, sir. For my sister Emma's wedding next month. Mama says Mrs. Watson does the most beautiful alterations in the county. Rose felt a flush of pride. I'd be happy to help. When would be convenient? Today, if possible? Mama thought maybe you could come for tea this afternoon. The whole family would love to meet your husband properly. Rose caught Cole's meaningful look. The Henderson house was her father's old residence, exactly where they needed to be. That sounds lovely, Rose replied. We'll be there at 2 o'clock. After Sarah left, Cole turned to Rose with satisfaction. Perfect. Now we just need to figure out what we're looking for. Cole, Rose said hesitantly, what if someone from your past shows up while we're doing this? Cole's expression darkened. That's what I was about to tell you. I got word yesterday that my partner Red is asking questions in towns south of here. He'll be looking for me soon. How long do we have? Days, maybe a week if we're lucky. Cole began pacing, which is why we need to move fast. If Red finds me before I find that money, he'll want to know why I disappeared with his share of our last job, and he won't believe the truth that I never took it. Rose felt a chill of foreboding. So we're not just looking for my father's money. We're running from your past. Yes. And Rose, if Red shows up, you need to stay as far away from him as possible. He's not like me. He has no code, no lines he won't cross. The weight of what she'd gotten herself into settled on Rose's shoulders. But when she looked around her small cabin, at the patched curtains that represented 22 years of being nobody special, she found she didn't regret her choice. Then we'd better find what we're looking for quickly, she said. Cole's smile was proud and grateful. That's my girl. The Henderson house sat on Copper Ridge's most respectable street, announcing the family's prosperity to anyone who passed by. Rose had walked by this house hundreds of times, but she'd never been inside, not even when it had belonged to her father. Mrs. Henderson answered the door herself, her face beaming with warmth Rose had never seen directed at her before. Mrs. Watson, and you must be Cole. Please come in. The interior spoke of comfort and stability, polished floors, lace curtains, quality furniture. But it was strange seeing it with the Henderson family's belongings, knowing that somewhere within these walls, her father might have hidden a fortune. Your father had excellent taste, Cole murmured, as they were led through the parlor. Mrs. Henderson overheard and smiled. We've made some changes, of course, but Sheriff Harper did choose a lovely location. Such a tragedy when he passed. He was a good man. Rose felt Cole's hand tighten on her back, a warning to be careful. Yes, she managed. He was. Emma Henderson appeared, a pretty blonde of 19 with excited eyes. Mrs. Watson, I can't believe you're here. And Mr. Watson, congratulations on your marriage. How romantic that you came all this way to fetch your bride. Cole's smile was charming and convincing. I couldn't stay away any longer. A man needs his wife beside him. Would you like a tour? Mrs. Henderson offered. I know this must be strange for you, Mrs. Watson, seeing your childhood home with all our things. I'd like that very much, Rose replied. Mrs. Henderson led them through the ground floor, parlor, dining room, kitchen, and her father's old study. Rose tried to memorize every detail while making polite conversation. "The upstairs has 3 bedrooms," Mrs. Henderson continued as they climbed. "Your father only used one, of course." The master bedroom was spacious, with windows overlooking the main street. Rose could picture her father here, watching the people below while planning his secret dealings. "Such a beautiful view," Cole observed. "Yes, Sheriff Harper always said he liked to keep an eye on things. He was very dedicated to his duties." Rose caught something in the woman's tone, a slight hesitation that made her wonder how much Mrs. Henderson really knew. After the tour, they settled in the parlor while Emma tried on her wedding dress. Rose knelt beside the girl, making careful alterations to the ivory silk gown. "It's beautiful," Rose said sincerely. "Thank you. Daddy says a girl only gets married once, so it should be perfect." "Your father's very generous," Cole observed. Mr. Henderson, joining them from his bank, puffed with pride. "We've been blessed with good fortune. Emma deserves the best." "I imagine business has been good all around," Cole continued casually. "Mining claims paying off, cattle ranches expanding." "Oh yes, quite a lot of money moving through town in recent years. Sheriff Harper used to joke that he was sitting on a gold mine himself, the way some deals were structured." Rose nearly swallowed her pins. Mrs. Henderson shot her husband a sharp look. "Charles, I'm sure Mr. Watson doesn't want to hear about banking business." But Cole leaned forward with interest. "Actually, I'm fascinated. What did the sheriff mean?" Mr. Henderson glanced at his wife, then shrugged. "Just that he seemed to have his finger in different pies. Always had advice about investments, knew which claims were worth pursuing. For a man on a sheriff's salary, he had remarkably good financial instincts." Rose's heart raced. This was exactly what Cole had been hoping to find. "He was always very private about his business dealings," Mrs. Henderson added quickly. "Privacy in financial matters is always wise," Cole agreed. Rose finished the alterations quickly, eager to leave. But as they prepared to go, Emma caught her hand. "Mrs. Watson, would you consider making my wedding cake? I know it's presumptuous, but Mama says you're the best baker in town." Rose looked at the girl's hopeful face and felt a pang of guilt. Emma Henderson was sweet and kind, treating Rose with genuine respect. She deserved better than to be caught up in whatever dangerous game Rose and Cole were playing. "I'd be delighted," Rose heard herself say. As they walked back, Cole was quiet and thoughtful. "What are you thinking?" Rose asked. "Your father was more careful than I gave him credit for. If he was hiding money in that house, it's somewhere the Hendersons haven't found it in 3 years. Maybe it's not in the house at all." Cole glanced at her. "What do you mean?" "Maybe he didn't want to hide the money somewhere he lived and worked. Maybe he put it somewhere else entirely." "Like where?" Rose thought about her father, the man she'd barely known. Somewhere only he would think to look. Somewhere connected to his secrets, not his public life. They had reached her cabin. Cole held the door open with automatic courtesy. "Any ideas?" Rose moved to the window and looked out at the town she'd lived in all her life. The main street, the church where she'd never been welcome, the cemetery where her father was buried. "Maybe," she said slowly. "But we'll need to wait until dark." Cole's eyebrows rose. "Rose Harper, are you suggesting we engage in some nighttime reconnaissance?" She turned to face him, and he saw something new in her green eyes, a spark of adventure and defiance. "It's Rose Watson now," she corrected. "And yes, I think I am." Cole's grin was brilliant and dangerous. "Mrs. Watson, you continue to surprise me." Outside, the sun was setting over Copper Ridge, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the gathering darkness, Rose's father's secrets waited to be discovered, and somewhere else, danger was drawing closer with every passing hour. But Rose felt alive in a way she never had before. She was no longer the town's unwanted bastard daughter. She was a woman with secrets of her own, standing beside a dangerous man who looked at her like she mattered. Whatever came next, she was ready for it. The game was just beginning.